Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Welcome all to our next episode in the discussion of Ramadan and the wisdom behind the fasting in Ramadan. And we had discussed last week fourth and fifth point with our speakers Colin Turner and Harun Pirim. And we had discussed what our lower self of Nafs Ammara, the training of it, and how it controls, how fasting in Ramadan controls and checks it in terms of its desires, its animalistic desires, and all that. And inshallah, we are going to switch to 6 point and some other wisdoms behind fasting in Ramadan. Inshallah will be explained and we'll start from there. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. 6 point. The most important episodes of divine revelation took place during the month of Ramadan. And so one of the many wise purposes behind the Ramadan fast pertains to the revelation of the all-wise Quran. It is as follows. Since the all-wise Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan, to ignore the demands of the lower soul, nafs, by abstaining from food and drink means that we are able to respond to that heavenly address in the best possible way. Fasting, then, allows us to attain a state of holiness. It allows us to read and listen to the Quran as though it has just been revealed, or as though it is being revealed at this very moment as we read it. It allows us to listen to the Quran as though we are hearing it from the lips of the God's noble messenger والسلام, or from angel Gabriel or Jibril, or indeed from the pre-eternal speaker himself. It allows us to act as the Quran's interpreter, to communicate it to others, and to some extent to demonstrate through our actions the wisdom behind the Quran's revelation. Indeed, it is as though in Ramadan the whole world of Islam is transformed into a mosque, a place of prostration. In every corner of that mosque, millions of those who have memorized the Quran cause the dwellers on earth to hear that heavenly message. Each Ramadan reflects, in the most luminous way, the verse, "It was the month of Ramadan in which the Quran was bestowed from on high." شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. It proves, beyond all doubt, that Ramadan is the month of the Quran. Some members of the vast congregation listen to the Quran reciters with respect, while others recite it for themselves. To pander to the base desires of the lower self while situated in a sacred mosque, and to abandon the state of holiness through eating and drinking is to invite the disgust of the rest of the congregation. Similarly, those who oppose this practice of fasting in the month of Ramadan call upon themselves the disgust of the whole world of Islam. So it's a different topic in the sense that not the training of our soul, but more about how our relationship with the Quran should be during the Ramadan and how fasting prepares us to Ramadan. Maybe also to connect this to our lower self training and Ramadan being the month of Quran. Maybe I'll first ask Brother Harun if he has any thoughts.
Assalamu alaikum. I hope
Alaikum
Ramadan
salam.
is going excellent for all. Yeah, this 6 points looks like particularly concentrating on the climate of Ramadan that triggers us to connect with Quran in a better, if not the best sense. So I'm thinking about the environment. So environment, yeah, we talked about how our nafs is closed to the message of the Quran or to the message of any authority to say, especially if the authority is holy authority. Nafs is pretending that I'm holy, you know, I don't want to listen. But here looks like this climate just gives an opportunity to just reconnect us with the Quran. And this reconnection, of course, in the first place, with respect to recitation, reading Quran. Literally, we know the Quran as word, it means reading or read. So we are very read-oriented ontological beings. I mean, we have to read. We have to read signs. We have to read letters. We have to read message. We have to read disposition of creation. So that's very human part of us. We have to read. Maybe it's one of the essential features of being human is to read. But unfortunately, it's not always the best reading experience we have. We are biased, so we are biased because of our profession. We are biased because of how we are raised, you know, our culture, our community. We are biased beings. But Ramadan climate just gives us opportunity to read clearly or read without any curtain. Um, so connect with Quran. So if it is to say to read the Quran in the best way. So this best way again, it's what Ramadan brings us the opportunity for, because we are cut out of eating, drinking, and useless conversations. So it's kind of we are isolating ourselves for reconnection. So I think that's what I understand with recitation. Otherwise, it's not just, you know, just arranging. Of course, it's good to arrange, you know, regular recitings in the tradition. Mukabele, you know, you're just reading, listening. So these are excellent. However, I think here the point is to read it with its meaning and with its true meaning without bias or to some extent, um, as long as our capacity allows. Yeah, Mustafa, maybe that's my entry. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, Jazakallah khair. And that actually is a good connection to my next question. Maybe Kulnocha can also chime in there, because there's also this part about to demonstrate through our actions the wisdom behind the Quran's revelation. So, as you said, it seems to go beyond just listening to the Quran or reading the Quran in its um, form, but also maybe going deeper by showing the wisdom behind the Quran's revelation in our actions as well. Khol Najam, anything about this part or anything to um, add or other reflections on Quran and fasting relationship?
Bismillah. I think that Harun laid out his stall very expertly and covered all of the main points that Hazrat Ustad has talked about here. We have the opportunity in this month to cut out all of the chatter that goes on in our heads and our bodies and our lives during the rest of the year. So it's like the 5 times prayer a day, which is supposed to be a point of communion and reconnection with Allah at certain points during the day. We have this huge opportunity during Ramadan, which is just for Him. The fast is for Him. No one knows you're fasting. It's not something that you can do in order to gain pride. So, right from the very outset, through His generosity, He allows us a certain amount of sincerity, because fasting is not something that you can show off to others. No one knows you're fasting. And we're not allowed to ask people whether they're fasting as well. That's another interesting point. So there is a kind of substructure of sincerity that's there encouraged already in that very fact. Also, the fact that we're not eating and we're not drinking and we're not engaging in things that we shouldn't be engaging in means that we are trying to clear the slate of our mind from this endless white noise and chatter of everyday life, and then hopefully refocus that on Quran, not just on, as Harun was saying, on the kind of mindless recitation of the Quran, but actually reading the creation, and not just Quran, because the creation is Quran Mujassam. It's the embodied Quran that we see out there. We read, and again, Harun said that we are innately people who read. Human beings are readers. Everyone reads. Everyone reads everything. Believers, unbelievers, hypocrites, dissemblers, associationists. Everyone reads. So this opportunity is for us to, with a clear mind and with determination, and with the right intention, to read the creation as it's supposed to be read, and also to respond. And the response is to be a conscious mirror of the divine names. And this is a perfect opportunity for that. There is always an opportunity for it, but we know that life demands a lot of us, and we tend to get lost in life. We tend to descend to the lowest levels of life, al hayatud dunya, which is always dangerous for us, always damaging. And so there is this month which is set apart as a kind of exemplary month to show us the way for the rest of the year. That's all I can add, really. Demonstrating through our actions the wisdom behind the Quran's revelation. The wisdom behind the Quran's revelation is to show us our Creator. It's to demonstrate the existence and the names of our Creator, and our duty is to reflect those names consciously. So, I mean, you can understand that however you wish.
Yeah,
Thanks.
exactly. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So maybe switching to another section of the same part, right? About the whole world of Islam resembling a mosque. I think there is a connection to the first aspect as well, about the collective nature of fasting, as the whole world of Islam is fasting together at the same time period and having that type of a collective ubudiyah, collective worship. And I think there's a connection there. It feels like that the whole world of Islam is also doing the same thing, being um, busy with the Quran, understanding the Quran, reading the Quran. And there is this part that says, each Ramadan reflects in the most luminous way the verse, it was the month of Ramadan in which the Quran was bestowed from on high. It proves beyond all doubt that Ramadan is the month of the Quran. So, uh, how does this action by all Muslims um, support us or support these, it's also like proves the point. Also, it feels like from this section that it proves the point that Ramadan is the month of Quran by seeing everyone um, being busy with Quran. Uh, how should we understand that support mechanism that we get from other Muslims in our relationship with Quran? Is it just like a spiritual relationship? Is it, or do we need to take that much deeper? Because I know Harnab is a deep thinker, so I want to see how his message is out of this support mechanism with the rest of the Islamic world. Harnab, any thoughts on the connection to the rest of the Islamic world?
Thanks, Mustafa, for compliments. You know, I mean, I get this Tawhid message here. It's always the best to render or blend in a superior or higher spirituality. I think the best person or the best Muslim in particular is the one who can connect with the universe, with other humans in the best way, so that, you know, we can present our worship in a universal state. I think that's the best, and we can see implications or reflections of this in even any worldly organization. We know much better today. You know, it's the teaming up. I mean, if you have a good team, or if you're part of a nice team, you how to say you give your message in a much better way. If we are created to worship, that's the gist of creation, then the best form of worship is collective worship. So if I'm to understand my weakness, powerlessness states, this is best understood collectively. So that means I need to connect with my peers, or with my, you know, brothers and sisters, in a way that we perform with the same intention, obeying the same creator, connecting with the universal system in a way. So this connection is invaluable. Nobody can achieve this state alone. So Ramazan brings us the opportunity to belong to a system, to say, and that's the best system to belong to, instead of just working as a part, isolated part. That would be very limited, and that's not what is meant to be as a human, because I feel the need to connect, and that's not just, you know, to be part of a power or worldly system. It's just to reflect our state of, you know, powerlessness again, and owning nothing in a collective sense. In other words, maybe becoming part of an ocean instead of just living as a droplet, you know, reflecting somewhat the sun. Maybe I can approach from this side, Mustafa.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. Thank you. I mean, that's really a great approach indeed. Khalil Najam, anything to add, especially around this, you know, being part of that whole, as Harun Abi said, and the support that we get out of that, like what is different in collective worship like this, in the case of reading the Quran, being trying to reflect the Quran and wisdom by its revelation as a whole rather than individuals.
There is a very famous English poet called John Donne, who lived in the 16th century, and he's got a very, very famous poem which goes, "No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main." So he understood something very important, and that we are all juz of a kul. We are ajza, belonging to a vast kul. And when we are acting together, we are acting, in fact, as a kind of collective personality. Hazrat Ustad talks about shakhs manawi, which can be translated as a collective or a universal personality, as though we're one person. I mean, you gave a compliment to Harun about his deep thinking. Well, I can use that, and I can say, well, look, this man is a deep thinker, not just him, but other deep thinkers. Excuse me. And this confirms for me, this is a kind of confirmation of my own thinking and of my own belief. So we give to each other actually what we lack. We get confirmation from each other, you know. I was thinking at the beginning of the session today, there were a few people from Turkey because they're at this moment breaking their fast. And I felt so happy for them because I can imagine, because I have family there and lots of friends there, I can imagine them sitting around together, you know, with great gratitude breaking their fast. And that for them is their worship. And it's as though they're present in this session. And it's as though we are present, us in this session, at their iftar. So it all becomes one in a sense. And we know that Ustad Nursi says that 1 + 1 + 1, if we see ourselves as just parts, becomes 3. But in actual fact, if we see ourselves as parts of a whole, it becomes 111. And that doesn't mean that we actually become stronger, but we actually become more worshipful, because when we all admit our powerlessness and our impotence, then this collective admission of ajz and faqr, it becomes monumental and can move heaven and earth through its dua, as we've seen in the past. So, Ramadan, in a sense, forces us into a position whereby we consider others. And personally, I find it very difficult to fast outside of Ramadan. If I have fasts to make up, or sometimes if I fast on Mondays and Thursdays in accordance with Sunnah, I find it very hard if I'm the only one fasting. So I think either it's me, something very personal to me,
It's not
but
only
I,
you.
I don't think it's just me. I think when people are fasting, for example, the whole of a household is fasting, there's nothing on earth like it. And when I know that thousands, millions of households are doing the same, with that same sincerity, and let's face it, no one fasts just for themselves. It's impossible, because you can't be proud of it, because no one knows you're fasting. However much you tell someone, you can't prove that you're fasting. Um, you know, with prayer, as I've said before on numerous occasions, with prayer and with Hajj and with Zakat and with Shahada, there's always a crack in through which Shaitan can climb in and make you proud of it and make you show it to others. Fazilat Furushi. I think Fazilat Furushluk, I think they call it in
Yeah.
Ottoman, but in Persian, Fazilat Furushi, selling your excellence to others, basically. You can't do it with fasting. It's impossible. So there is a kind of innate sincerity already built in to the practice, which is why Allah says, "This is for me."
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Anything to add, Harun abi? Otherwise, I can also switch to the next point.
Also, this is related with, what Colin Hocam mentioned. You're also emphasizing, Mustafa. It's this stone example in Risale. We use it to reflect on our impotence and poverty. So, stones come together to build a bridge, and we know that neither of these stones have the exact power or ownership of hierarchy whatsoever. But together they build a nice bridge, to make use of it. So same here. So we have we come together as stones, no difference. Each of us have particular duty or standing point, and however, none of us have really the power or nothing. Actually, we don't have anything, but coming together just builds a bridge which is useful. So that's kind of again just submitting yourself into the ocean, that reflects reality. So I think that's wonderful. Even just trying to understand or imagine what we are representing, that should be, appealing to the creator's vision in a way. So that's a very appealing state to say, and I don't think we can have this state without Ramadan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Sounds great. Let me then switch to the next aspect, which will be more around the trade, and I think this connects well to the ibadah portion of it and having the worship part of it. And inshallah, I'll read, and inshallah we can discuss. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The seventh point, one of the many wise purposes behind the practice of fasting in Ramadan concerns the trade in good deeds and the earning of spiritual profit. which is one of the reasons why humankind was placed on earth. The reward for righteous actions in the month of Ramadan is 1,000 times more than in other months of the year. According to a prophetic tradition, each word of the all-wise Quran carries 10 merits when recited, and will bear 10 fruits in paradise. During Ramadan, however, each word yields not 10 but 1,000 fruits, and verses such as the Ayat al-Kursi, is from the Baqarah, yield thousands of merits for each word. If they are recited on a Friday in Ramadan, the yield is even greater. And on the night of power, Laylatul Qadr, each word carries 30,000 merits. Indeed, the all-wise Quran, each word of which yields 30,000 eternal fruits, is like a luminous tree of Tuba, which will earn in Ramadan countless millions of eternal fruits for those who believe. Consider then the sacred eternal trade and the profits to be had from it. Consider it and think of the infinite loss suffered by those who do not appreciate the true value of those words. In one sense, then, the month of Ramadan is like a market designed for the trade of the hereafter. It is a vast tract of fertile land where, where the crops of the hereafter may be sown. For the growth and flourishing of actions, Ramadan is akin to the showers of spring. It is a brilliant holy festival at which mankind displays its worshipfulness in the face of the sovereignty of God's lordship. And it is because it is so, mankind has been ordered to practice fasting and self-denial. Mankind has been told to abstain rather than surrender. Um, Mankind has been told to abstain rather than surrender to the animalistic desires of its lower self, its lusts, and its desires for the trivial and the futile. By rising above its own animality and by ignoring the demands that the world makes of it, the lower self, the nafs, is able to approach an angelic state and to engage with the trade of the hereafter. Through fasting, one approaches the state of the hereafter, the state of a spirit appearing in bodily form. In that state, each human being becomes a mirror reflecting all of the names of the one whom names of the one whom all beings need, as Samad, reflecting all the names of the one whom all beings need, but who is himself above all needs, as Samad. Ayne-i Samad, being a mirror to the as Samad. Indeed, the month of Ramadan itself acquires a kind of permanence and eternity within this short life, within this brief, fleeting world. For a single Ramadan is able to produce fruits equal to a lifetime lasting 80 years. 1,000 months is about 80 years. The fact that, according to the Quran, the night of power, Laylatul Qadr, is more auspicious than 1,000 months, 83 years. Okay, sorry, is proof of this if proof were needed. For example, by the way, there's a footnote which I explained briefly myself is divine name as Samet is I was translated as he whom all things need, but who himself needs nothing. Now here's an example of this trait. For example, a monarch may declare that certain days of his reign, his ascension to the throne, for example, or his official coronation, are to be public holidays. These holidays are designed to be a glittering and glorious expression of his sovereignty. On those days, he confers special favors on his subjects, appearing before them in person, bestowing on them honors and other bounties, and paying special attention to those of them who are especially loyal and worthy. Similarly, the all-glorious monarch is a ruler without beginning or end of 18,000 worlds. And the ruler has revealed, in the month of Ramadan, the brilliant decree known as the all-wise Quran, which pertains to each one of those worlds. Wisdom thus requires that Ramadan should be like a special festival, a display of divine lordship, a spiritual gathering for all beings. And since Ramadan is such a festival, God has ordered man to practice self-restraint in order to draw him away to a certain extent from base and animalistic activities. The most excellent way of fasting is to make the human organs and senses, such as the eyes, ears, heart, and thoughts, fast along with the stomach. The most complete kind of fast occurs when we lead all of the senses and appetites away from all unlawful things, all trivia and futility, so that we may guide them to the kind of worship that befits them. For example, the fasting of the tongue means withdrawing from lying, from backbiting, ghibah, from cursing, and the use of obscene language, and to make it fast from such activities. Once it has withdrawn from that which is unlawful, one should then busy it with activities such as recitation of the Quran, prayer, repetition of God's beautiful names, seeking God's blessings on the Prophet, and asking for forgiveness. The eyes, too, should fast by abstaining from that which is unlawful, such as looking at members of the opposite sex who are outside the circle of kinship, or indeed at anything that is unlawful. And they should be used instead to look at that which is lawful and learn from it. Similarly, the ears should fast by refusing to listen to that which is harmful and should be employed instead to listen to the Quran and so on. Indeed, all of one's organs and senses should fast, and this should not be that difficult, for once the stomach, which is the body's largest and most complex factory, has been forced to take a holiday from work through fasting, it should be relatively easy to make the smaller workshops in the body follow suit. It's a long section, but also an important one about how we can use Ramadan as a marketplace for when we have good deals coming in. We all know, like in the close to Christmas time here, right? There are all these deals, discounts that appear on the stores, and people line up, right? There is the famous Black Friday, for example. People line up to get 50% of certain items, etc. And this is a marketplace in Ramadan where we have one can become 30,000 in the case of Laylatul Qadr, for example. So it is indeed important. Let me get some reflections, inshallah, from both Kulin Hocam and Arnav. Maybe Kulin Hocam, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, well, first of all, Black Friday is a very, very unfortunate import that we had from the USA a few years ago. So,
Yeah,
so you
probably.
mentioned it. Yeah. The same as trick and treating, which we never had when I was a child. These things are coming over. But that aside, there are some things that we have to be careful about in this seventh point. This notion of trade, of course, we're talking about the revelation which came at a time and in the hands of a person who was a trader, who was a merchant, assalatu wassalam. And there are lots of mentions in the Quran of trade, of God, for example, giving us a beautiful loan, and we giving him that loan back. The beautiful loan is the loan of his names. We lend his names and we should give his names back. So we shouldn't be too surprised that Hazrat Ustad also uses this notion of trade, mu'amala. In fact, the mu'amala is also the name for our acts of worship. They are mu'amalat. Ibadat and mu'amalat are all connected together as worshipful acts. And actually, ibadat are also a kind of mu'amalat, are a kind of trade. So we shouldn't think that, this is utilitarian and we're doing it just to get something back, which is often how trade works. Although there is that danger, and particularly when this idea of merits, this word is worth 10 merits, and if you say it on this day, it's worth 20, and if you say it on this day, it's worth 30, and so on. These all have a place and they all have a meaning. Unfortunately, a lot of people, myself included, treat it as though these are things that are to go down in a kind of accounts book, with in and out, paid in and paid out, like in a bank statement. The statement that you get from your bank tells you how much has been paid into the account and how much has gone out. There is a tendency among people to treat actions like that, and they become a little bit robotic, a little bit, like autopilot. So the things are done just for the sake of reward. This shouldn't bother us. This shouldn't perturb us or disturb us when we read what Ustad is saying here, because the words in the Quran are eternal. They are his words. They are his kalam, and they are priceless. So when he's talking about, each word carries a certain number of merits, 10 fruits in paradise, 10 merits. Actually, every single word in the Quran reflects and manifests and represents infinite fruits. The thing is, we are veiled from them. We are veiled from them through our negligence, through our lack of understanding, through our laziness, through our lack of attention. And what happens in Ramadan is that Allah is saying to us, look, you have the ability during this month to uncover the veils which are covering those words. And it's not really about gaining a physical reward in the world to come, although I'm not discounting that. The reward is the understanding that comes from the greater attention that we bring to the Quran, the greater determination, the greater love, the greater spirit of community. And every word, we have the ability to understand it in a much better way than we normally do, because we're reading it with an empty stomach, we're reading it with a clear mind, we're reading it in the knowledge that millions of people like us are reading it. We're reading it with the understanding that it's being revealed at this very moment that I'm reading it. It's being revealed to me. It's addressing me personally in my context, with my understanding and with my capacities. And therefore, the merits here, what it means is you will gain from it much more understanding. And if that understanding is translated into faith, then those merits are actually us becoming better believers. It doesn't mean that, okay, you read this word, you'll get 30 more palaces in heaven. That may be, but palaces in heaven pale in comparison to, the vision of Allah. And we can in this world get the vision of Allah to a certain extent through our understanding of the Quran. We can understand who He is and why He has revealed the Quran. So we shouldn't get bogged down, as I used to do, by thinking, oh, this is just like an accounts ledger, with people noting down how many times they've done this or how many times they've done that and how many rewards they expect. It's much deeper, much more profound than that, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and definitely this part here confirms that, right? I mean, the rising above its own animality, and by ignoring the demands that the world makes of it, the lower self is able to approach an angelic state and to engage with the trade of the hereafter, right? It is that state, that understanding that is really provides that additional reports, but additional understanding, additional unfolding of those truths for the self, and definitely, and there are good examples in the Risale-i Nur about how we can actually understand these numbers that are given, right? In some cases, people even can get to doubt certain hadith that can mention certain numbers or certain um, um, certain like rewards for certain recitations, etc. And then to make sense of that is really, I mean, we should understand that it is a bit more metaphorical in one sense, that it is something that we cannot really measure. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in Hadith Rasulullah ﷺ uses them to help us understand in our own worldly trade sense. But it's definitely much deeper because it is related to hereafter, which is infinite, and we cannot just comprehend what infinite actually is. So this is a good.
I think you're right. I think just very quickly to say that you know, the Quran is aimed in one sense at the lowest common denominator. In other words, everyone has to take a portion from it. Everyone deserves to take a portion from it. And therefore, as you said, we can read these things as being metaphorical when we talk about trade. And the numbers in Hadith, for example, let's be realistic about this. If you are in a room full of people and something important, and they're all chattering away, and something important is being said on the TV, you can maybe get one or two of the words that are being said. But then if you tell everyone to quieten down, you can get much more from it. So, I mean, if you quantify those things in numbers, you can say, well, the first time, you know, if I listened to it the first time, I got a fifth of it, but you know, when everyone quietened down, I got four-fifths of it. Of course, it's difficult to quantify that. It's almost impossible because, but I definitely know that when I told everyone to be quiet, I was able to listen to this important announcement and get most of it, if not all of it. So what you know Allah is saying is that if you do it at this time, then because you are fasting, you are most likely to get much more than if you hadn't been fasting and you hadn't been in that state. This is what those numbers mean, and they come in numbers because they have to. These are simple examples, you know. These are not philosophical precepts, you know, for only the elite to understand. These are very basic, down to earth examples, and the hadith are the same. So we shouldn't be that surprised that they come in that form.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Harnabi, any reflections on this part or any other parts of it, which is actually a bit long, right, in the whole section?
Yeah, that's amazing. And I loved, you know, what you and Colin Hojam just mentioned. Yeah, these meanings are amazing. Especially I loved, you know, the take that the main reward is, you know, like we are a part going through the machinery of worship or machinery of Ramadan, and it's not the, I mean, the real reward is, you know, us, you know, being in the state of worship, you know, um, through this rewards or through the encouragements, you know, of these merits. It's not the ends themselves, but they're the means for us to have this state of, you know, the quality, to retain this quality, you know, meant to be. Um, Also, I wanted to talk about the hierarchy. You know, I think in many dars, in many lectures, we discussed this point, and I like it. We observe hierarchy in everything. So, we know, I mean, compared to plants, you know, animals are, you know, at a different level, higher level, we can say, with respect to consciousness. If we are to assign values, you know, we would assign less values with respect to consciousness to plants compared to animals. Similarly, we would value humans more than animals with respect to consciousness. Um, so if my axis is consciousness, we can definitely just construct hierarchy, you know, hierarchy of values, merits to say, and we can definitely rank or understand creation with these ranks. From this analogy, actually, I come to, you know, this merits as relation to paradise in this piece. I think they are like every word of Quran just produces some outcomes in the paradise. I find this is very relevant, especially these days. You know, I'm amazed with this language models, ChatGPT stuff. You know, they're just orders of words just generating meaning. And the core of this generating meaning or generative AI is just embedding of these words into numbers. So obviously each word will have, based on the context, different values. So I think I can extend it analogy to Ramadan. So during Ramadan, every Quran has its embedding, defined by the creator. So these embeddings are values. So, and these values can be doubled, tripled, and many more folded, during special occasions like Ramadan, Friday, Laylatul Qadr. But the creator already just put on a hierarchy. Even this hierarchy exists in Esmail Husna, right? There are this Isma Azam, so Isma Azam, obviously, so more important than other names. So we have this type of hierarchies, and these hierarchies make sense to create meaning. So looks like language models does generate, or to say create meaning from words, new meanings. Looks like each of the words of the Quran, which is live, is used to weave meaning, instantaneously. And this is the reality of it is on the paradise side. So regardless of its merit, I'm thinking of the meaning that requires some quantification based on the hierarchy defined by the creator. Shortly, I wanted to imply this point.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. Koen Hocam, any reflections on that part? Otherwise, I have a question.
No, only that I love hierarchy and discussion of hierarchy, and Harun with systems knows a lot about hierarchy. I find it very interesting. It's not very fashionable today to talk about hierarchy because everyone wants to flatten everything else and say that there is no hierarchy, but there clearly is. The hierarchy in the merits of the different words, of course, is the fact that the veils can be lifted in Ramadan more easily, and therefore it seems as though all of the words have different hierarchies at different times. Allah Alam, He knows the truth. I believe that all of Allah's words are equally infinitely valuable, but obviously we don't see them in that way. We see them in this hierarchy, and that's how it has to be because we are part of this causal realm. Thank you.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair. Okay, we have about 5-6 minutes, so just to make sense of the time. I have one question. I guess one important, profound part of this aspect is also the fasting extended to other organs, eyes, ears, heart. And of course, there are some examples here, such as from the tongue, about not lying, not backbiting, but also it it has an alternative, such as recitation of the Quran, prayer, repetition of Ismail Husna, things like that. For eyes, again, abstaining from sin, and actually employing it with beautiful things instead. So I would like to get a few thoughts on this part too, because I think it is an important part and it's an important thing that some of us might also um, not do, and also like what will be the benefits, because we did discuss things about that the quiet room and understanding of that, the message on the TV, for example. Um, and I think these other organs are some of these crowd in the room. And I would like to open it up a little bit if you can. Both anyone can jump, either Kulin Hocam or Harun Abi. But any reflections on this?
Just very quickly, it reminds me that Ustad says here, talks here about 18,000 worlds. God
Yeah.
is the creator of 18,000. 18,000, we know it means very many. We have so many lata'if, we have so many subtle faculties which are never activated, which are never thought about, never used. And we have the opportunity, as you said, that was a great analogy there. We have the opportunity to use them, 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 to Mustafa. You know, our other organs are like the people in the room chattering away. And in Ramadan, they have the opportunity to be quiet, right? And actually, our body has its opportunity, our organs to do their own worship. We think that they're just serving us. You know, we think that our stomach is just serving us. It's not just serving us, it's serving its creator. Um, so our other organs have their opportunities to worship. We need to reflect on that as well. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Harun abi, thoughts?
Yeah, maybe there can be a lot to talk here, but obviously, I think the general sense that maybe people are shocked, when, especially in US, non-Muslims, when they hear that we are not even drinking something during fasting because it's a little bit different in Christianity, right? So they are shocked, even you're not drinking something. So then the conversation boils down to we are cut off eating and drinking, which is not always the case. So it's just maybe the bone of it, skeleton of it, but to fulfill with skin, and all the meat. Um, Definitely, this part is what we need to talk about, and what the message of fasting is. This 18,000 realms corresponding to our inner faculties mostly. So this inner faculties of us, to say, should be fasting, right? So that means they are uh, directed, or they are doing their acts in the best way. Tongue not lying, vision just looking at nice things, um, ear hearing, good sounds, good messages. So our attitudes becoming more, sincere, lenient. So all the good words to say, good sentiments. So it's intended for us to be a production factory with inner faculties that produce all good goods, to say. So nothing bad goods. So um, that's the state of fasting, that ultimate goal it should bring us. Yeah, I wish, there were more time and more pondering on these points, Mustafa and Kulin Hocam, but I think we don't have time.
Yeah, indeed, these are really, really important points, which kind of connects also, I think, to the earlier points of training the inner self, the lower soul, the nafs, because it connects our inner senses to actual outer organs and senses, such as eye and ears and stuff. And it looks like fasting is a wholesome training for the whole body. And it's not only the inner body or the stomach, it's our outer senses and organs and everything. So it's definitely a overall ibadah. And yeah, as you said, the time is running out quickly. We have actually 1 minute left to the end of the hour. But any final reflections, maybe from Kulin Hocam?
No, just Ramadan Kareem. We're halfway through now. Inshallah, the second
Yeah,
half will be as auspicious as the first, inshallah.
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 Anything from you, Harnabe? Any final thoughts before we end?
Thank you. Yeah, Ramadan Kareem, may Allah make us follow the true fasting, whatever it is.
Inshallah. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Jazma abi, if you're available, would you like to make a dua?
inshallah. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Oh Allah, make our Ramadan better than 1,000 months for us, and make us evaluate this time, very flourishing time, in the best way. Give us strength spiritually. إن شاء الله آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.